Okay, to finish this thought on the robo arm here, let's go ahead and bake it out. And one of the very first things I like to do is well, when I bake it out, I do it in parts, right? So I move one section. I don't necessarily hide the parts, and I kind of show you why. But in this particular case, I just make sure everybody is set up hierarchically the way it would be for the actual rig character. So in other words, like the roller would be separate, the upper arm is separate, and the forearm is separate, and the hand is separate. For the vid right now, just to keep it simple, I'm not going to do the fingers and their individual separate aspects. It's just, once again, the hand becomes like a whole character by itself, right? But just to show my process, right? So anyway, so I got that. So let me see. Let me just double check everybody. This is, I want to be able to move that, but I can't. So that's the upper arm, but the upper arm needs to be, there's a couple more pieces here that needs to be added to it. So and I know I have my elbow. And so I was glitching before. I think it was because I was recording at 60 frames per second. I'm recording at 30 frames now. So let's see if I get those glitches that were causing Blender to, freak out on the menus and everything. Because I don't think it's Conjure at all. It was something to do with my recorder. But anyway, so here's the forearm area. That's great. Okay. But I had the palm. Where did the palm go? Wrist. Why is the wrist in here? There you go. All right, so the wrist needs to come out. The wrist rotator needs to come out. So he needs to come out. Oh, he has animation on him or something like that. What in the world? Let's take that clear keys. Let's go to local. Let's pull him, let's unparent him. Come on there, Boss Hog. Come on now. All right, we'll just do it manually for right now so I'm not dealing with all this other stuff. All right. That's because it got keyframed, something glitched, and it got keyframed to an object, to the forearm. I think the forearm already has some kind of keyframe on it. And whenever you hierarchically link anything that already has a keyframe on it, or vice versa, then things go wrong. All right. But let's go on. So we have the wrist. So the wrist is separate right now, which is great. And we're just going to go backward. So we have the wrist, we have the shoulder, and wrist, shoulder. I want this going to be easier to select. And then these guys here need to be just added up. Elbows here. Okay, we're just going to put them in there. All right, so we have shoulder, elbow, shoulder rotator. It's not in proper category. And the wrist, right? So all of that should give us the ability to move around nice and neat. And if I want, I can, let's go to ZenSet real quick, and let's just tag them up, just so we can have, it'll create a nice little floater for us. So we'll call it wrist hand, we call it hand. We'll just use the ZenSet to create the call outs. So we'll just call this one hand. So this is for what we actually need to see it as in our understanding of like what's going to be used in the future for. Shoulder rotator. I'll call it shoulder 1. No, we'll call it shoulder. And let's just pull that out a little bit. And in this particular case, I'm not trying to match match what I have worded over here. This was worded this way for when I was making it. This is going to be worded for how I need to think about, like, okay, animatable parts, right? So this one would be that shoulder. Oh, I clicked on the wrong one. All right. So this is shoulder, right? And we want to go to elbow rotator. We're going to call that forearm. Or lower arm. I'll call it lower arm because that's how I do the bones. Lower arm. And this guy is going to be called upper arm. That's how I name my bones. Right. Okay, and let's go ahead and save. All right. So the good thing is, so once again, when I use the Zen sets with it, I can see my, it's easy to see what things are and where they're located because of the callouts. And I like that. I like that a lot. Like it a lot. All right. Shoulder and shoulder. What are you doing? Oh, because one was already selected. Deselect everybody. All right. There you go. Okay. So then technically I should be able to click on palm. No, wait a minute. Who did I just click on? He's not locked out, right? Nobody's locked out. Wait a minute. It's Zen. And then, select it from here. More control instead of, because the reason why I even did the Zen, right, is because I don't want to go through here clicking and stuff, right? Right. And so there you go. All right. So that's why this is one of the bigger reasons why I use Zen sets for, or how I use it. As I said before, I use pseudo to do like my master locking. So I really want to lock something out and I don't want it selectable and I want to keep track of it along with Zen sets, then I'll use pseudo. But the nice little name tagging and actually does a nice little color little thing too and stuff like that. That's cool with Zen sets. All right, so let's go ahead and start to set up for bake. Now, because this is an assembled item, I'm not concerned about like everything having to be exactly aligned and stuff like that during the bake. I'm not concerned about that at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to explode everybody. So let's go here. So now I'm in Zen set mode. So everything I'm clicking is going to be over here. All right. And let's turn off that guide real quick. Sorry. Turn off these guides just for right now. Okay. So let's pull him out. I'm just gonna move them so I have access to them. That's the only reason why I'm doing it like this. Lower arm. Just move them out like this, right? And that's it. I don't technically need to move anybody else. That's all. We just exploded it out. Now let's go ahead and we'll start with this little bad boy. And because we need to make this into the actual geometry to render or the texture and render. So right now we don't have any polygons that we can utilize at this very moment. And I know everybody wants to see like, well, what does it look like when you actually turn to polygons? So let's see. Let's go down to our bounds. So now we're going to add bounds. Make sure to have your extras and stuff turned on when you add bounds. Because it uses empties. I want to say nulls, like in Lightwave. Nulls, dummies as in Max, or empties as in Blender. So let's add some bounds, right? And then just going to throw it to the center of the world. But we said we're going to start with this guy. Maybe I just did it wrong or something, meaning like I don't know if there if Conjure has a way of like whatever you have selected, that's what it will assign the bounds to. I don't see anything like that. But oh, bounds needs to be extras needs to be on, and wire needs to be on. Wire. Where's my trying to see where my nulls went to. Are they in there? I don't see them right. Oh, there they are. Oh, okay. They're being covered up by the graphics language of the SDF, which acts as its own little thing. So I'll just go here. Now the wire, now you can't really see the wire, and maybe that's not too helpful right now. So let's just go real quick into themes, and let's just get wires to show up. I like my wires light like that. I can see it, but maybe somebody else can't. 3D viewport. Let's go all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Let's go to wire, and let's make them like that. No, well, then it looks like the dummy. Let's make it dark like that. All right, or it looks like the empty. All right, so here we go, and yeah, and all right, now we're free. Okay, so here, so maybe there's a faster way, but this is how I've been doing it. Okay, so all we need is our box. It just reminds me of like a physics box, but to do our actual breakout. So here we have it, and now let's go ahead and actually dump this guy out, make him into into actual geometries into geometry. All right, let's go on down. Blah 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 blah. Let's generate. We're going to generate at 100%. So it's going to be. It's going to telling me it's going to be a total of 27 million total voxels, and da da da. Then it's gonna. It goes through a chunk mode because it does it all separately, and then we need to bring those chunks together. So it's going to be clicking here, then clicking there, right? And then we have some other cool things to do to optimize our mesh, as you'll see. So right now we need a high res. So let's go high res. Let's go generate. And as you can see, it's timing on my GUI, on my cursor. Maybe you can't see it. You can see it now. It's like stalling or pausing stuff as it bakes it out. Now, of course, I could have done this at a lower res to begin with. So if I know ahead of time, I only need it as this, I only need it as that, then I could do that. But it's no big deal. This is not an overly complex structure. And now here's all these chunks. So let's clean up the chunks. It's reading all the chunks in there. So let's clean up the chunks, and you can see them. You can see a part of it already selected there. So let's clean that up. And it's going to give us just a nice base, nice heavy mesh. And now, right now, is these calculations are CPU based, I believe it is. I'm looking at my monitor here. So here we have. So this is the high res. And matter of fact, should I break it? I don't know. Blender's gonna break. Let me see. Turn on wireframe. No. Right. So you can see. Here's our high res that it just baked out, right? Pow, okay. Let's go back out of that, okay. And now this is actual geometry that we could actually render, okay. But it's not very usable unless you like to work with little teeny weeny parts that cost you millions of polygons. So I usually go to quad mesher. And then from quad mesher, I don't use adaptive quad for this particular type of process. And quad mesher, 5,000 polygons for a sphere. Yeah, that's kind of high. But we'll see what it looks like, right? So let's do quad mesher. So let's remesh it. And detect edges by angle. So actually, all that stuff is important. Adapt quad count is good for getting it to forcing it to focus on certain aspects of the geometry. And there it is, and it's been remeshed, right? So that's quad remesher. What's the polygons look like? And this is the polygon level, not the black, but the gold, right? And that's fairly good. And you see the nice little dense mesh there and everything like that. Cool, cool, cool and all. All right, so, and then now what I'm gonna do, you can see I'm enjoying this way too much, right? Because all this, it just simplifies everything. He's baked out. So what I'd like to do is let's just move him, click him. Am I gonna move him? Oh, I have no GUI. I have no what? Oh, because the world center is there. Okay, I'm not gonna move that though. But let's say, so this is the actual geometry, right? And let me add some smoothing onto it. That's pretty clean. That's pretty clean. And then let me see. And how clean is he really? That's pretty clean. I'm not going to mess with this one. I'm not going to use B mesh on it because that's pretty straightforward, right? These are nice little corners and stuff like that. So there's no reason, right? Because the B mesh, all it's going to do is it's going to overly clean the sphere, and then we'll wind up with maybe episodes of artifacting and stuff like that. But that's clean. This is what I expect from my sub D mesh. All right, so it's good. Okay, no big deal. So everybody sees the process. Ooh, so it's not scary, right? No, it's not scary. And of course, this is our original SDF mesh, which once again showing the non-destructive aspect of SDF. Now, let's go on over to the bigger kahuna that we will be using some special things on, is our arm. So let's go on over. So it would be cool if, maybe in the future we'll have it where if I don't know, maybe it exists now, but where if you click on a geometry and say bound, go click on geometry, then click on bound. Where's bound? And click on add bounds, that it automatically jumps to that geometry. Maybe I don't know how to do it, but that would be cool. And I mean, it just saves time. Especially if you're dealing with a lot of mechanical parts or something, which some people have to deal with, and the less they have to click around, the better. All right, so I'm just lining it up. It doesn't have to be precise. It's not like it's going to create like some massive, like another additional massive amount of calculation. But just make sure you don't cut off, because the cool thing is, yes, it does do a slice. So it will bake everything that's inside of it, and whatever's not inside of it, it will just slice it. It will just not bake it, which is a cool thing to have. It just means though to make sure that your geometry is inside the container. Anyway, so here we're going to go with this guy. We're going to use the same settings, the same exact settings. All right, now that we have this in position, now that we have the bounds in position, let's go back to the original, or the first bake out, right? So we have where it says that retopo chunk. So this is our retopologized chunk mesh that we just generated. Let's just to make sure we don't run into any errors or anything like that, because we're gonna be doing this session like 1, 2, 3, 4 times, right? And Conjure is going to be writing these same names over and over again. It does increment them and stuff, but just to make sure we don't run into any type of problems where it's clashing. So we're just going to rename this guy to shoulder bake. or shoulder roller bake, just so we don't have any issues, right? I see there's a chunk here, right? And that doesn't necessarily need to be hanging out here. So we're going to make sure we get rid of that chunk, right? And anything else that was attached to it. The sub deref, that's something else different. Now we're clean. We have no, in other words, we have no remnants. Leave no remnants behind of the original chunk, the original bake out with the chunks. Make sure there's nothing left of that naming convention in there. Okay, or an artifact or anything left over. Okay, so now we're ready to go. I think we don't need to do this at 200 million polygons. I don't think so. Let's just let's try to keep all our polygon counts to under 100, right? Under 100 million. So we're just going to do this out of 75. I think because whenever you have these like cylindrical or spherical shapes, that's where all the polygons are going. And so when you have these excessive numbers and stuff, that's because you're going to have excessive numbers of polygons running through these curves. And we don't need that many. So we're just going to drop it down to 75%, right? Which brings us down to 96 million. Okay. And we'll look here to make sure there's no clashing. Once again, there's no clashing of naming convention stuff. And I think 96, yeah, 96 that's a lot. So let's go. And we got 48 seconds on this, less than a minute. Should work out fine. Just as long as we keep an eye on making sure that we make sure that we have a nice clean palette or a clean scene for it to bake into, for Conjure to create everything into. Now I did see that once again. I saw that in previous testing, I saw that Conjure does create, like it'll say like chunk 00, and it'll say like chunk for this one. Then when you bake it out, it'll say like chunk 001 or something like that. It'll switch up. But I also saw that in the way I was doing it, that it was unifying all of the chunks. So if I made one bake out, let's say of a shoulder, and it said, so that was a chunk. And then if I baked out another object in the same scene, that new chunk would now unify with that old chunk. So in other words, it would be they would now be considered. It was basically like one massive mesh object that was just growing and growing and growing, all under one name. And that's not what we need here. So anyway, so here we go. So all the chunks baked out, and let's just clean them up with the default settings. And how you know it cleaned up properly is because when it finishes this process, you'll have a selectable mesh that will be highlighted, which is a good feature instead of you hunting it down. And the cleanup is CPU based, right? I'm looking at my numbers. Yeah, because the GPUs are running cold. All right, and there it is. Pow! And here's this chunk, right? So that chunk name. So here's our new one, and let's see what it looks like at 75. Oh, it looks good. So let's move it up. Let's just move it up. He should have stayed on the center line, but no big deal. And we'll just examine him real fast and make sure he's not over that. Okay. All right, and yep, that held together really well. And of course, we don't want to use that. All right, that's just our base mesh. See, voila, nice juicy polygons. All right. Make any modeler like have a seizure. Here we go. Okay, so now we're going to. So that was for the chunk. And so now we're going to put it through its paces. So that was for the chunk, and now we're going to optimize them down. Let's go to. I said I want I wanted 20,000. Let's see if 20,000 will be suitable. We have to test it. All right. And I'm using quad measure for this next step, right? To make it, to clean up the mesh. Hey, let's not do that. Let's not bug out. All right. And let's remesh it. And it's almost done. You see it timing up here. Almost there. Okay. Oh, and we are falling apart. Wait a minute. Soften it up. Okay, so we need a little bit more because we're falling apart underneath here. Okay, so let's go back. Back. One more. And let's go to 50. I would put it on a DAP quad, but whoa, sometimes when you put on a DAP quad, it really goes for it. It really, really ramps up the quads in certain sections. So we'll just stay off of it for a minute. All right, so we're remeshing again with quad remesher. And you saw I did everything else fine. Everything else was pretty good. And we're going back up again. And we're almost there. And it likes everybody. This is quad remesher. Oh, almost. So we'll go up to, okay, we'll let's do one more. Let's go undo. Okay. And we're gonna let it roll. Okay. We're gonna say adapt quad, and now we're gonna let it roll. We do that 50 and see what quad. Now we're dealing with quad remesher because you see clearly of what Conjure put out. So Conjure put out something very true to the original form. Very true. And just as long as you work at a nice standard resolution when you're building your models, that way you're not, if you work too small, really small with Conjure, you'll start to have differences in the final bake out. But that's only if you're working like in very small, like if the entire arm was the size of just the shoulder, then I can see that I'll start running into problems. So anyway, so let's go here. Let's go, and then now we're gonna go with that quad. So we're in quad remesher. So basically nothing to do with Conjure at the moment. Just trying to grab that. And so now I'm like, okay, let it fly. Put it on a DAP quad count, for goodness sake. Let's let it roll. All right. And here we go. Going back up again. Boom. And it nailed it. With no smoothing on. Look at it. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that pretty? As you can see all the polygon. Oh, that is pretty. So no artifacting, because I could see I would have been going through a lot more iterations trying to get that nice clean look. Right? Nice clean look. What does it look like mesh wise? Right? So you go, oh, well. So we got, it's nice and clean and uniform. Are we going to use this mesh? No, we're still not using this mesh. Matter of fact, I'm going to leave it in this mode right here so we can see. And, well, no, we're going to go out to, we can keep it back to what we were doing. Let's put smoothing on. And we're not, no, that's not our final destination. We have one more, because my thing is there's a lot of empty spaces that don't need to exist. So I'd like to break out my B mesh clean. Let's put it on import clean, and let's go ahead and apply. It's going to warn me and say press OK to confirm, and I'm like, yeah. So B mesh clean is going to do our final clean on it, and there it is. It already did it. It showed me my report, showed me how many vertices it removed and stuff like that. And so here's our B mesh clean. It's saying that, hey, out of everything you did, we were able to get rid of some vertices. We were able to get rid of some vertices here, there, that are unnecessary. There's a lot of curves in this. So here you can see how it, so this is not Blender optimizing the mesh visually for us. This is actually B mesh clean that has actually gone through and cleaned up the mesh. You'll see this is the upper arm is highly curvilinear, so you're not going to see that much cleaning, even though you see cleaning, but you will see that even more so on the other pieces. You can see where it dropped out geometry down here. That's not necessary, right? So this all been cleaned out. Okay. Cool. All right. So now we're going to go on, and we have the model has held together, right? The shape, the form has held together. It is great. You can just compare and say, okay, this is original. This is the animatable, renderables, paintable 3D mesh. All right. So now let's go on. Continue on, sir. We're gonna name him. We're gonna just make sure. See, we have a chunk here. These chunks. Let's just drop that chunk out. And this one we're gonna call it upper arm. Upper arm. Get rid of anything having to say with chunk. Not saying it does create an issue, but just to make sure that we don't have an issue. All right. And I don't need anything like that. Upper arm bake. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. All right. And based on the same setup I have right now, let's just save and go on. And the reason why I don't do the, like, I guess I could, if you have it all hierarchically linked, and you can just go through here and just drag for it to not to display, and it won't display in your viewport, so it won't bake out. For some reason right now, I'm not down with that. For right now, I want to visually see everything, and I just want to be able to drag my little bake out box. That's why I was saying, like, it would be cool if whatever you selected, if you said add bounds, it automatically would snap, like the bounds would snap to it, or snap to that. Yeah. So if I highlighted like all of these guys and said add bounds, the bound would just jump to it. Maybe it does. I don't know. I say it out loud like this, but I think add bounds always just adds it to. Anyway, if it does do that, then cool. If it doesn't do that, then cool. But I've always seen it just to add it to the center of the world. So anyway, let's keep on going, because this is not a big deal. Because I can see a lot of people would do this manually anyway, because they want to be accurate. I want to make sure I get everything in here. All right, so here we go with this section. And we're clean. We got shoulder bake. We have no chunks. Okay. Let's save that so I don't have to redo the bound for any particular reason. Although, out of all the hours I've ever used Conjure, I've never had a crash, or I never had a crash Blender, which is interesting. I'm sure it will, but I've never had it do that. All right, so let's go. Same thing. We're going to go with 75 again with the general. That was very successful here, so we can go with 75 again. This one's a little more complex, but 75. We'll just keep it as our go-to number, and I think we're ready to go. And it's going. And all these, while it's doing that, so I would figure out that if I was doing a hand for animation, obviously I would probably keep, the rollers, the knuckle rollers would stay, the first row of knuckle rollers would stay attached to the form. Or no. I would do the knuckle rollers separate. I would do them separate with their attaching limb, and separate with the attaching limb, or not limb, but finger part, or as they say, phalange, as the finger part. All depending. I'm just looking at, like, okay, so how is that supposed to roll? And it may even be like, I don't want to zoom in. I don't want to do anything while this thing's baking out. But it may even be like, it would be like the finger phalange part here, the weld would be one piece. So it would roll smoothly across the roller. And so the finger, and it would be the finger and the welds would be considered one geometry. The roller is a separate geometry. And once again, the finger and the welds would be another set of geometry. That makes sense. Because that's how I would have to model it to begin with anyway. And so I'm just going through, like, what would be the strategy for the baking? What parts do I need? And that's all. And this one's still going. Oh, and we're done. There's the chunks. So now let's clean up chunks. And we're going to use the same, whatever we use on this upper arm in quad remesher. We're going to do the same thing here. We just, same process, because the level of complexity is fairly the same. Now, when it comes to doing like the overall big heavy unit, mech unit, then I'm more than likely I'll be even more strategic, where I can spare some polys here, spare some polys there, or something like that. Just because there's no need to have anything that's in excess. Voila. And here's our highlighted form. We are so happy. Where's our center line? All right, it's over here. We're just going to pull them over. And look at that. That's beautiful. Yay, look at that. And look at the our nice little new part of the Conjure. Right? That's nice. Okay. And so now let's save that. I'm like, save, Brent, please save. And now let's go ahead and strip it down further. Quad remesher, 50,000 with the adaptive on. I like that, actually. So let's just let it rip. Oh, well, yeah. And then once it rips, then we'll rename it and get rid of. Yeah, it didn't create another. I don't see any additional chunks, so I don't see anything else weirdy in there at all. So remesh it. Everything's automated. Can't oh, there it is. Are we done? Are we done? Yeah. And okay, we're done. And we've done that fast. I didn't get a chance to start talking. Now it's done, sorry. And there's the leftover chunk. Oh, so the leftover chunk comes after using quad remesher. That's what causes the problem, because quad remesher creates a brand new mesh, leaves behind the chunk, and then this chunk, when it's left behind, when you go to bake out another set of geometry of SDF, this will create a conflict. This creates an issue. So that's why I wound up having to delete it. It's because quad remesher. Oh, okay. Well, let's look at these polygons. All right. So this is what it's at. This is what quad remesher did. And it handled all of the curves. That's fine. Okay. And now we're just going to clean it up one good go. Like some of the stuff in here, some of these flat areas probably going to go. So let's go back out again. Let's go back to here. So that whole chunk naming issue, that comes when you use quad remesher, because quad remesher leaves the chunks behind, because this needs to be said, because Conjure, once it finishes the chunk process, it renames the chunk, right? It calls it something like blah 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 chunk something. But then when you go in and then create and then strip it with quad remesher makes a brand new mesh, and then leave that chunk behind, which will once again cause conflicts with other meshes as they get baked out and when they start creating their new chunks. All right. Anyway, okay, let's strip them. I'm just always happy to find out like the root of something. Import clean. So we're going to B-mesh them. All right. B-mesh away. Go ahead, B-mesh, do your thing. And there it is. These are all that's been cleaned up. And let's take a look at them. Once again, this has a lot of curves, very cylindrical form. But you see already. B-mesh for the win. Look at that. Right? It's got rid of a bunch of stuff in there. A bunch of stuff down here. Anything where there's flat open surfaces. Even up in here, even here, you see? See? Look at that. The top of the cylinder. It got rid of all the top of the cylinder. And some aspects of the cylinders here. And you can see the gaps. Once again, this is not Blender optimizing the mesh for display. You're actually seeing the what's been stripped away from B-mesh clean, right? And still holds on. And then of course down here, see all this empty space down here. Yeah, awesome. And of course, since it's a cylindrical mesh, you know, it has all of that. Because we did at 75, but I'll go with that because I don't want any type of hiccups. And also you go, well, cylinder doesn't need that much, but remember when I did that subtle cut for that plate, you need a certain level of geometry to be able to display that. Now that could be obviously done with normal maps or stamping and stuff like that, but I had it in the form. And you need to know that if you have it in a form, then this is the level of polygon count you need to go to in order for it to show. As you see here, right? This subtle stuff here, right? But look how we cleaned it up. Cleaned it up and stripped it out. All right, hopefully you can see that. Now, I am so giddy right now. Yay. And but why does it look like that? Because I need to put some smoothing on it. There you go. Right? So another ready to use part. And now let's go to the hand. Yay, just save that. Oh, but before we go to the hand, once again, this is the remnant left over from using quad remesher. So let's get rid of the chunk. Let's rename just for make sure, and we call it lower arm. Lower arm bake. Yeah, save. Okay, and let's just move our little guy. Yep. Now, once again, we're just doing the whole hand like this, but I'm gonna probably come back and do the individual parts and stuff so that is ready for animation. But the whole thing has the whole character has to be built anyway. So this is good. The arm served as a good, nice little proof of concept kind of thing. All right, and let's go up a little bit. And once again, we got all these nice little curves, and let's make sure that he's pulled out here. All right. Okay. No one's hanging out in the back here because we don't want to rebake. No, that's good. All right. I just think this is so cool. All right, and that's my little sphere. This is my little sphere. I use it for other little things, so don't worry about that thing. All right, save that. And are we clean? We don't have any no chunk information is here at all. And that's just our mesh bounds. All right, so back up the ladder we go. And right now it's going to come in. It's telling me it's going to come in at 75 million again or something. Maybe I don't know if it's true for this one. But it's a lot of spherical, cylindrical, shape-ish stuff. So 75 this is good, so we can go again. Yep. And I'm cool with it because of the process, because it's fairly stable, So I haven't had any issues with like, oh, I'm baking out, then all of a sudden it locks things up. My only thing is like when I'm using my recorder, my screen recorder, is the screen recorder interfering with stuff. But the bake is fairly good as far as time wise. Just once again, just if it could utilize all onboard GPUs, that would be great. Okay, we got our chunks out. All right, now let's clean our chunks up. We're almost there. And cleaning up we go. Yay. All right. Okay. And I'm not going to move its center or anything like that. I'm just going to be we can do all this stuff manually. All right. So here we have, and remember I would for animation anyway, I have to do break the fingers do the fingers all the sections of the fingers separately in order to have my ruler. But this is if I had the whole thing. We could possibly go a little higher than that, because I would like to have recorded a little more detail. So, being the person I am, yeah, let's go out. I just undid it. So let's just go out. We need to go out at least at 100 for him. And let's generate that, right? And as I said before, because now we're getting smaller. Remember I said about the upper shoulder or the upper arm. If the whole arm was the size of the upper arm, then we'd have resolution issues. But we're dealing with the hand, and the hand is a fairly small object. So we need more attention to the poly count to get the resolution that we need. And now, of course, if you're doing this stuff, if you're making something for a game or, for anything heavily interactive, and then you want to strip it down with quad remesher, you want to really start to strip. But then it's because you'd already be in the position of, oh, I have the high res, I'm going to bake out normal maps from it, blah 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 blah, whatever, and then strip down the base mesh down to whatever poly count you need. So I'm looking at this from the standpoint of pre-rendered animation, pre-rendered, right? So that's it. So that's the not pre-rendered animation, from just I'm looking at rendered, right? And so I'm not looking at at such minimal levels of poly count. Don't want to be excessive, but I want to hold the form. I want to hold the form. I want to be solid. I don't want to have to utilize normal maps to suggest basic indentations and stuff like that. If it was in whatever's in the original SDF, I want it to translate into the geometry. That's what I need it for, versus if it's in the SDF, I'll bake it out to create normal maps, right? All right, so there we go. And let's clean up those chunks. Yeah, here we go. Because I hear the CPU kicking in. And I am dealing with only in games I'm pre-rendered sprites, So my main thing is making sure the geometry holds its form properly. That's the main thing. And so here we are, and do we get a better one? Yeah, that's fairly better. It's fairly better. Okay. I'll live with that. And let's look at the count. Of course, it's gonna be like nothing like this. And I see, it did its own little nice little good job when it comes to Conjure's process, because you see how it's omitting the unnecessary. So that's nice. That's very nice. Okay, let's clean it up further. Almost done. Let's clean up our little final chunk. Now he looks like an actual character. That's funny. So here, let's remesh it. It gets too soft, so we'll remesh it, using the exact same what we have already, same settings we have already. We just keep on going through them like that. And of course, once again, it's going to create a new mesh. So it's not going to be chunk 265. It's going to be something new. So we're going to go back and delete that chunk 265 or whatever's left behind. Yeah, you see chunk 265 got left behind and it's hidden. Problemo. But anyway, there's our retopoed, right? And then we're going to clean up one more time. Let's add some smoothing to it. And it held together. And rum, right? So it actually meshed back over those areas. All right, but it still held together to mesh. But fine, because now we're going to go to. That was kind of interesting, right? So Conjure did this nice, clean, high res thing, and then QuadRemesher came and said, "Okay, we just ignore all that." Held together the same information, and so now we're going to go in and B-Mesh clean is going to bring us right back to that whole cleaned up look again. And say okay. And that's it. And B-Mesh clean has done its job. It has the same visual articulation as we saw originally. And watch this. And B-Mesh clean brought us back to the omission of the flat surfaces and to the poly level. Probably be a lot, well, now I won't say lower because we have cylindrical forms, but it's much lower. This is the QuadRemesh low res or lower resolution with the B-Mesh cleaned up behind it, which I think is beast mode, right, for what I'm doing. But anyway, the hand would never be this way because it would be broken up into parts. But for what I'm showing here now, for this proof of concept type of thingy, it all works out fine. But, and as I said before, we go back because QuadRemesher left behind this. We have to get rid of it. Always get rid of it, because if I turn around and say, hey, I want to rebake this, that chunk is still sitting out there in the world, and it has nothing to do with Conjure. That's just because it got left behind from QuadRemesher, and Conjure won't tolerate it. That's basically what will happen. So anyway, let's assemble this arm. Let's just put them over here real quick. Fairly simple. Now, I would obviously have this set up differently so that everything would lock in before, because I would be exporting this out so that it would be well, I would leave it in I would leave a version of it in Blender to be surfaced so I can proof the surfaces, and then in material and all that stuff, but over in, because all the rendering would be done in Blender, but I do all my animation. This is how I do it. I do all my animation in Lightwave. I like Lightwave's animation system, but everybody can do their own thing. But I like Lightwave's animation system, so I do it all over there. There you go. Yeah, and then I just all of this would be in layers anyway. Okay. All right, and so we wind up with our high res, or not high res, but our animatable version of the geometry. And can we take a look at it here? And there you go. All right, and that's fairly, the hand would not be like this, but everything else is fairly good, fairly standard. All right. Okay, thanks for hanging out. Hopefully this was some good information, and I liked it because it gave me a chance to proof this out. Cool. All right, peace.